watch that. We'll throw on someone else's hard work. That's how we'll do this. Where the Yep, there it is, brother. There it is, brother.
Sunday. Very special Sunday, though. Or it's not Sunday, it's Saturday. What the fuck? Oh, I already fucked it up. We gotta just do that intro over.
Yeah, I hear it. See?
Over again. It's Saturday.
Okay, cool.
September 11th. But you already know it's a special day
over
today.
him
Why is it a special
as well.
day today?
That's good.
Yeah. That's part of the reason. Okay.
I don't even know what
9/11
just
is obviously
happened,
an
bro.
incredibly important American historic day. 3,000 American citizens died on that day. It's a horrific tragedy. Something that we've discussed time and time again. I have
Korea
spent
veteran,
the
that's
past
fucking
week,
triggering. I love
every
it.
waking moment that I'm not live watching 9/11 documentaries, 9/11 movies, just things that have been coming out in honor to commemorate the events that took place and remember the victims. And,
remember the victims,
also,
brother.
the many victims that
For
we
real, though, for
created
real.
in the 20 years after 9/11, of course. I mean, there's a lot I want to talk about with respect to this.
I was the only kid in my goddamn high school who fucking got taken out of school for 9/11. I remember it. The only one. And like, it was shocking. I actually saw when either, I don't know if it was the second plane hit or the second tower went down. I think it was when the second plane actually hit. That's what it was. And it was crazy. I was in like 5th grade and nobody else was even like making a big deal of it, even though it was, like, I don't know, it was very strange. I think people were far behind the news, I guess, but my parents watched CNN like the Dickens back then, and that was fucking, I don't know. It wasn't as, I didn't feel like it was as leading as it was. I'm sure it was back then too, but rather be watching that than CNN, or CNN over Fox, that's for fucking sure.
Thought that I would dedicate this day to, you know, the 20-year experience and the nostalgia for many of the Zoomers that are unfamiliar because they were literally not born at that point, so they just don't even know a world before 9/11. And as the boomer who is 30 years old, who was 10 years old at the time of 9/11, I just wanna show you guys how the world changed and how psychotic Americans behaved for like 20 goddamn years. So obviously that's what we're gonna do. It was America's worst terror attack that unfolded, that took the lives of 3,000 civilians. It's different than even Pearl Harbor, because like Pearl Harbor mostly killed military members, whereas this killed like straight up fucking, you know, normal people. Now, I've said a lot of stuff about 9/11, as you guys already know. I am a Muslim boy who grew up in Turkey, who came
Just
to
so you know,
America
this
at
isn't
the
part
age
of Hog
18,
Watch.
so
He
now
does
I've
Hog
seen
Watches.
some
We're gonna
of
do Hog
the,
Watch after
some of the
this. I just remember this
effects,
video
how
being
white
up. We'll
passing
fucking,
I might be.
we'll
No,
Hog Watch,
9/11
brothers.
impacted
We'll
everyone,
Hog Watch, all right.
and it totally accelerated America's war on terror. We're going to talk a lot about that. I just want to show you unearthed footage that I found first and foremost, though. This, of course, is not from 9/11, but actually from 1994. This is an Iron Man cartoon from 1994, where an unidentified military jet is attacking a building. This is never before seen footage. Let's take a look.
Identified warplane sighted heading for New York City. Mayday! Mayday! New York is under attack!
It's getting through!
No, okay. It doesn't look strange. I thought the fire might look strange.
Strike at the heart of American defense and destroy the Pentagon.
That's right. Yup. There you go. Stan Lee. What is he hiding? That's what I'm dedicating today to. Stan Lee. What did he know? What was he hiding? Was he a part of the CIA? Why did Stan Lee know exactly what was going to happen in 1994? This is precisely what happened. What did Stan know? That's what I'm going to be talking about today. Or was it simply that Osama bin Laden watched this because he was a fucking weeb and also a big Marvel soy facer, and that's how he decided, like, fuck, this is what I need to do, bro. I mean, we'll look at the sorrow, obviously, we'll look at the serious stuff, and we'll also look at the horrifying shit that we did, and we'll look at the funny commemorations, because, like, as is the case with everything, obviously even the most brutal attack that has ever occurred by foreign actors on U.S. soil was slated to, under our, you know, capitalist organization of the economy. Inflate has become this commemoration that is actually just purely for consumption. Either it is to, whether it was to reinforce the already, jingoistic attitude that the Americans had to fight back against the world like an angry playground bully and punch everyone and anyone and kill anything, or for just pure consumption to make some dollars. Like that fucking teddy bear I saw. The Bear Workshop apparently had back in like 2016 they were selling bears, like little 9/11 bears. When people come to me and tell me that I do not take 9/11 seriously, or that I'm joking about such a horrifying reality, I just want to help people understand, like, nobody takes 9/11 seriously. Everyone uses 9/11 for their own political desires and their own goals. Ultimately, every single person agrees that 3,000 innocent civilians did not deserve to die on that day, but virtually every single fucking person, since the literal moment that those towers fell, every single person in a position of prominence and power, whether it be politics or media or even like executives working at fucking the Bear Workshop, has seen an opportunity to seize on this situation and either hawk products or hawk war. Some of which has had an even more devastating impact and a more permanent impact than 9/11, like America's incredibly expensive war on terror that has been costly, devastating, destructive, and is pound for pound responsible for nearly every single catastrophic event that we experience today. For the people who are going to be pearl clutching on this day and saying, like, fuck you, whatever, blah, 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 just remember that I am not the one who denied the Zadroga bill for many years and made those fucking first responders who are dying of lung cancer beg on their fucking hands and knees in the halls of Congress for some proper financial restitution for the brave shit that they did on that very day. That was not me. Those were the same fucking politicians that then used 9/11 to advocate for more war. Spare me your misplaced anger. They're set at the right places, set at the right causes.
I'm from a legal state, too, just so
those are the fucking demons. Okay?
It's not illegal.
Yeah, Jon Stewart was out there
Fully
fucking
legal action.
pleading. Did you see how he was on 9/11? In case y'all didn't believe, nothing like walking through a public school hallway and seeing Among Us Remember 9/11 poster. Oh my god. Oh my god. When the imposter is a sussy little baka, it's like saying that Al-Qaeda station chief Richard Blee was a sussy little baka. I saw him vent when, he found out that the 9/11 hijackers Nawal al-Hazmi and Khalid al-Midhar had entered the United States in July 2001 and withheld that information from the FBI. What a sussy little baka he was. It's almost like he vented. I just think. Kind of strange. Kind of interesting. I just want to remind every single person that, hears about the fucking unity in the aftermath of 9/11 and how much Americans, talk about how united the country was and how sick it was and that we should, go back to that or some shit.
Let's go.
Those people are oftentimes overwhelmingly white or, at the very least, just not Muslim, okay? A group of people that did not like the unity at the time, let me tell you, do you know who those group of people were? Fucking Muslims, okay? Arabs, men of people, just literally scared shitless. All over the fucking streets, terrified that, they're gonna get spit on. Six, of course, there's another group of individuals that literally was like, we're fucked. We're fucked now, I guess, because, America's fucking chickens came home to roost, and now they're gonna fucking kill us for literally no reason. It created the absolute fucking most psychotic wave of, anti-Muslim and anti-anything, Muslim adjacent that looks Muslim fervor in this country no one has ever seen. When Americans talk about uniting post 9/11, they were talking about uniting to murder Muslims or whoever they thought was a Muslim. Just brown people. Just brown people that were Muslim adjacent. Never forget that the first victim of white supremacist terror in the aftermath of 9/11 was a Sikh man, I believe in Texas, who was murdered by a racist dipshit who thought that he was a Muslim 4 days after 9/11. That's right.
That's crazy.
So
That's
just,
fucking
when people say shit like that, ignore them.
That should not
they're
be happening.
fucking delusional. Their
Right.
understanding of the world and, how things look like post 9/11 is delusional,
Fucking
not
insane.
real,
It's
does not
literally
represent
insanity.
reality or clouded by the privilege that they had. The attitudes that people demonstrate towards Arabs and brown folk still exist to this day, still permeate to this day. That has not changed. It's been a hard endeavor to undo some of that. It has been rather difficult to combat against that misinformation, but you saw bile and hatred from even those who posed as liberals. Many liberals, as a matter of fact. Sam Harris being one of the greatest purveyors of Islamophobia under the guise of liberalism, who's able to just take advantage of the pre-existing fears that a lot of Americans had, who's able to direct all of that anger against just all fucking Muslims. On the morning of 9/11, my political science professor made me leave class so the other students could grieve and process safely. I was 18 and living away from my parents for the first time. I used to wear a hijab back then. I was the only recognizable Muslim in the class. Yeah.
Yikes.
And I love when people will turn around and just be like,
cool, dude.
wow. Even now, even to this day, when we talk about the impact of 9/11 on the world stage, or when we talk about the impact of 9/11 on Muslims and brown people living in America, everyone still says oh, spare me the fucking waterworks, brother. Who cares? Yeah, we were racist. What the fuck? The real victims are, the people that died in those fucking towers. Yeah, no shit. They are the victims. They are victims. It was a terrifying thing. Except your attitude towards random individuals that have absolutely nothing to do with 9/11 and are completely against it is also psychotic. There are still people that lose their fucking minds. Whenever I talk about Islam in 2021, there's still otherwise progressive individuals that literally lose their fucking shit whenever they hear me talk about Islam and turn around and go oh, fuck you, you're wrong. Muslims are fucking bad across the board. It's a violent ideology.
Ooh,
how am I racist?
Sorry.
I'm just against Islam. Yeah, as though there's no racial component to being Muslim. Bro, they're not shitting on Chechens until they figure out that they're fucking Muslim. You know that, right? Even for me, I benefit tremendously from being white passing as shit. I wonder why people don't have that same fucking kind of reaction. I wonder why people's reaction changes when they find out my name is Hasan. It's hard for you to comprehend because you know what the fuck my name is, you know what my background is. I'm in a position of prominence, public figure, so it's a little different. But I wasn't my entire fucking life. Yeah, this is what I was talking about. The first hate crime casualty after 9/11 was a sick man named Balbir Singh Sodhi, murdered by a man who thought Balbir was Muslim. On the Daily Show, Hasan Minhaj asked, why don't you just go, hey, I'm not Muslim? This was my response. I hope you'll join us.
Why don't you just go, hey, I'm not Muslim?
It's just not an option for us to throw another community under the bus. Even if it means things are harder for us, we believe it's the right thing to do.
We need to be better than that as Americans. And that's what our sick guys.
Again, it was a fucking horrible tragedy. I don't think anyone is disagreeing with that. I think there might be some people. It's obviously innocent civilians does not deserve to fucking die. But it was a totally preventable thing that the American government absolutely did nothing to prevent. And as a matter of fact, turned the other fucking cheek on, and then reacted in the perhaps worst possible fucking way that could. And to put things into context, now all of these fucking dumbass liberals try to say January 6th is 9/11 but so much worse. It's not. 9/11 was obviously significantly worse than January 6th. Shut the fuck up. 3,000 Americans literally fucking reduced to rubble and ash in a fucking pancaking building. Are you insane? It's not even comprehensible to make that comparison. But you know what's fucking worse, dude? COVID. Pound for pound, there's fucking people just literally dying as they're gasping for the last breaths alone in ICUs. There was a point at the fucking peak of COVID where we literally had a 9/11 a day, and the hogs were clapping for it. So I don't know what the fuck these people are talking about. You don't care. You literally just don't care. So shut the fuck up. Almost 3,000 Americans died in the last 2 days, dude, to COVID. Here's some fucking real conspiracies, okay? That the airliner lobbyists immediately got together in the aftermath of 9/11, and as I was watching the fucking real story last night, it's a new Netflix movie that you guys can watch if you want. It's there's a lot of tragic shit in it. Airline lobbies immediately getting together with the government and telling them you need to fucking compensate, you need to start a victims fund, or else they will literally sue us, and this will destroy the American economy, this will destroy the airliner industry. The victims of 9/11 will sue us, their friends and family, but we need to offer a compensation fund to them immediately, and the conditional compensation will be that they can't sue the airline. listeners. They can't sue the airline industry. We did that shit. That was immediately after 9/11. Another conspiracy is that the EPA literally fucking lied to Americans when the fires within the World Trade Center were going on for the next 100 fucking days. Those fires were not put out for 100 days. That entire blast radius was still contaminated with asbestos and numerous other fucking toxic chemicals and inhalants that would cause many people to get fucking cancer and a litany of other complications. The EPA literally was like, well, we can't stop the Wall Street from continuing to work. So they released information that it was actually totally fine to go back to work. They lied to people and they told them, no, just go back to work. And there was a school in the fucking blast radius. Like, kids were going to school. There's another conspiracy. The American government, including Rand Paul and numerous other people who are still in office to this day, purposefully did not offer compensation to the victims of 9/11 or the first responders of 9/11 who had, like, literal polyps and shit growing in their goddamn chest from the asbestos they huffed. Is it true or conspiracy? Like, it's conspiracy in the sense that there was conspiring happening. It's not a theory. This is real shit. What I'm telling you is the real shit that is going on. And you're hyper-focusing on the dumb shit, because the dumb shit is, like, easy to latch onto and endlessly pontificate on. Our government is horrifying. It's disastrous. We are awful. We only care about the profit motive. Oh, for you to understand a little bit better, here's Wajahat Ali talking about Mohammed Hamdani. This is a perfect, like, capturing of exactly what the fuck happened. Like, this is a perfect encapsulation of, like, America and our attitudes. Are you ready for this? Mohammed Hamdani was a first responder who died on 9/11, a Pakistani Muslim American, a New York Police Department cadet, and emergency medical technician who rushed in to help. As his family was still hoping he'd be found alive, he was investigated as a terror suspect due to his religion and ethnicity. New York Post published a story about him entitled Missing or Hiding, Mystery of the NYPD Cadet from Pakistan. And the right wing ran with the smear. Eventually he was recognized as a hero. His name is not included in the first responders at the memorial. Hamdani is included with other non-first responders, but his mother, Talat Hamdani, to this day is still lobbying for him to be recognized as a first responder. I hope this is corrected one day. After 9/11, American heroes like Mohammed Hamdani, a first responder who died after rushing to help people, were demonized simply for their faith. So just remember that. Now, let's get to the post-9/11 thread of people just posting the wildest shit they remember from 01 to 06. People thought Osama had an entire mountain hollowed out that he was using as his base, and that's why Al-Qaeda was hard to find, and that's how somehow a group of like 30 dudes arranged this. This was like unironically reported on. Osama bin Laden's...
Whoa, what the fuck? I need to stop getting these fucking text messages. What the fuck is this? So, a complex of caves at Tora Bora is carved at 1,150 feet to 13,000 mountain. What the fuck? Okay, accommodated to 1,000 people. Okay, it's got secret entrances and exits. Hydroelectric. What the fuck? This is crazy. This is the fuck.
Mountain Fortress. The complex of caves at Tora Bora is carved 1,150 feet into a 13,000 foot mountain and can accommodate up to 1,000 people. Like, these motherfuckers were doing Minecraft shit, dude. Hydroelectric power is generated from the mountain streams. Complex includes offices, bedrooms, and communal rooms. Secret exits to complex site are guarded by steel doors and are booby-trapped. Caves are cut deep inside the mountain to avoid the possibility of detection by thermal sensing equipment. Main entrance is through a 50-foot tunnel wide enough for a car. There have been reports that bin Laden has been moving around in the area on horseback. Arms and ammunition, including Stinger missiles, are stored in underground armies. I wonder where they got the Stinger missiles from. Now, this was a really funny thing that I remember personally from the time. America hated France more than we normally do, and more than they deserve to be hated on. Why? Because they refused to be a part of the retaliation. So, at the time, because they refused to join the OIF, we decided it was no longer French fries, but they were called freedom fries. George W. Bush's approval rating at the time skyrocketed to historic highs at 90%, like 94% or something. The entire country was uniting around the American empire, was uniting around the American president, and was absolutely angry and bloodthirsty and wanted to fucking kill anything and everything that resembled those who had attacked us and killed 3,000 innocent civilians. The Speaker of the House was a pedophile wrestling coach, Dennis Hastert. He's a record holder for being a prolific rapist. of little boys, but also a record holder for the longest Speaker of the House at the time. Still is, I think, to this day. He still holds that record. Dennis Hastert, of course, is a Republican, by the way, so whenever fucking Republicans try to tell you, like, Democrats are pedophiles, just remember, Dennis Hastert, prolific wrestling coach, pedophile. Not much has changed. We got Jim Jordan, who himself did not do the pedophilia, but overlooked the pedophilia. Also, in charge of the athletic department in Ohio that had a pedophile wrestling coach. So that's a fun little tidbit of like how the figures change but the actions don't. Remember our cases of French wine and poured them into the Chesapeake because the French were refusing to join the OIF. We created freedom barricades, protest pens, and free speech zones to make normal people feel good. Protesters gather at the French consulate. Demonstrators attack countries' stance on war and boycott products. We wanted to boycott French products because they did not want to go along with our psychotic fucking endeavors. We put half a dozen kids in the Heritage Foundation didn't think were good enough to hire themselves in charge of a $16 billion national budget in Iraq. We had a doctor who created surgical dick lengthening procedures act as our representative to lead the religious authority in Iraq. One of the famous things that we did in the aftermath of invading Afghanistan and then also Iraq, which Dick Cheney suspiciously had even before we invaded Iraq, just a weird coincidence, but just, where all the oil was in Iraq, that was divvied up by private corporations and who would get to, extract the natural resources. I mean, literally before we invaded Iraq, by the way. This is like so strange that we had, literally before we invaded Iraq, was divvied up by...
Yeah, I want to see this. What the fuck? Okay, so... Okay. Oh my god, this one section, it's weird, because this one had more oil, but it had less people after it. Nonetheless, this is fucking... Oh my god, this is actually fucking insane.
Private corporations and who would get to, extract the natural resources. I mean, literally before we invaded Iraq, by the way. This is like so strange that we had, we were just like thinking about what we would do if we were to fantasize about like, maybe hypothetically invading Iraq, which had nothing to do with 9/11 at all. But what would we do? It'd be real strange if we gave like most of the fucking defense contracts in Iraq to the company that Dick Cheney was leading, called Halliburton. That'd be real fucking strange too, right? I mean, who knows? Whatever. Of course, one of the other famous things that we did when we invaded Iraq, again, by lying to the rest of the fucking planet about weapons of mass destruction and connections to Al-Qaeda, totally lying, when we invaded another fucking country, after lying to the rest of the world, Colin Powell did famously, what did we do? Why was the only ministry that was secured with this boots-on-the-ground invasion, why was that the energy, the Ministry of Energy? It's so strange. Such a strange thing that we did there. The only fucking ministry that we secured, not education, not transportation, none of that. We destroyed the infrastructure immediately, and yet for some reason, we secured the Ministry of Energy. Odd. The CIA rehabbed Gaddafi very, very fast because they needed a win by having Gaddafi hand us a bunch of old chemical weapons we probably gave him to look like we were doing something. That was true. That also happened. And then they went back on that too. What happened to Gaddafi? Don't ever collaborate with the American authorities. You will get ass fucked by a bayonet and you will die that way. That's what happened to Gaddafi. He got ass fucked by a bayonet. Dick Cheney was discovered to have a map. There it is. Dick Cheney was discovered to have a map carving up Iraq with the location of what oil companies gave what chunk of the country prior to the invasion. Okay, the not about Iraqi oil map. I don't know why you guys are, saying that. This is just not suspicious. It's just things that you do. We found out that the president interviewed dozens of military experts to find one who wouldn't be such a downer about invading Iraq. We created a do not fly list with like 900,000 names on it. One of my political science professors at the time at Rutgers University was one of the many military experts at the time that said, do not invade Iraq. This will be a devastating, catastrophic thing. It will be horrible for Iraq, and it will be horrible for America. And of course, George W. Bush was like, I don't find me a guy that says this is good though. I want to find a guy who says poggers. We should invade Iraq. That's right. Now watch this drive. Bill Maher actually said the only good thing he's ever said. This is like straight up. The show that on his show, Politically Incorrect. Bill Maher said something that is 1,000% true before he became a gigantic liptard pussy.
He made this infamous comment less than a week after 9/11.
Fucking Dinesh D'Souza, who literally said who wrote an entire book about how America deserved 9/11 and agreed with Al-Qaeda, agreed with the reasoning of Osama bin Laden with respect to why America deserved 9/11. He literally wrote a book, boys. I know that people get mad at me and say like, oh, I can't believe the way that you fucking said what you said, like it's so devastating. No, this motherfucker wrote a whole ass book, bro. He wrote a whole ass book saying America deserved 9/11 because like there's gay people in America, okay? Only conservatives get away with that, exactly.
We have been the cowards, lobbing cruise missiles from 2,000 miles away. That's cowardly.
That is a
Staying in the airplane when it hits the building. Say what you want about it, not cowardly.
He said, lobbing cruise missiles from 2,000 feet is cowardly. Standing in the fucking plane as it hits the building is not cowardly. Say what you want about the terrorists, but, you know, you can't call them cowards. That's what he fucking said. He said that. And then he subsequently got fired for saying that, of course, obviously. Tom Clancy, a guy whose entire shtick is writing revenge fantasy about killing non-Americans, was nicer to / about Muslims on 9/11 than most Democrats were for the following decade. I didn't see anyone be this nice for years.
Could you possibly imagine something like this to write about?
I frankly would have thought that this was not a credible threat to have 4 separate people decide to commit suicide in the same way on the same morning.
Why not?
Because ending your own life is not something the average person does. You know, everybody's assuming these are Islamic terrorists. Well, if so, they've defiled their own religion. You know.
Wow, Tom Clancy with an unironically correct take that every American
That is actually kind of funny. That is funny. That is funny that Tom Clancy of fucking all people was. Oh, that's very telling. That'd be like a fucking I don't know. Is there any other fucking war games? I don't know. John Madden.
Worst sin that you can commit
like
in
it, but
Sunni
still,
Islam. Literally, just completely unacceptable. Something that we just retconned, by the way. If you ask like 98% of non-Muslims, like, is suicide acceptable in Islam? They'd be like, yeah, of course, they love doing suicide bombs. Are you crazy? Completely haram. Like, absolutely, spectacularly haram. A sin. And yet, like, you know, if you ask the Western world, like, no, they fucking love that shit, dude. 72 virgins, yada, 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 all that sort of stuff. So he's right on that. These are bastardized interpretations that have been utilized to create one of the most effective forms of one of the most effective forms of insurgency on the planet, which is suicide bombing. Suicide bombings have existed before Islam. Suicide bombings have existed before, like, Hezbollah. Suicide bombings have existed before. I mean, you have the Tamil Tigers. You have kamikaze attacks. There are well-documented instances of suicide bombings and suicide attacks in general. But as far as, like, Islam's opinion on suicide, it is considered to be a sin. Called jihad for Allah when you die for a religious cause? No, it's called being a fucking martyr, shaheed. And even then, that is if you're fucking rising up against a force that is like seeking to expel you, purge you, murder you and your family. And even then, it's not an advocacy for self-harm. That is a separate interpretation. And jihad is not like the way that we fucking understand jihad in America. Like, oh yeah, you know, Allahu Akbar, that's my jihad, I'm gonna blow myself up and kill infidels. Like, that's not fucking jihad. That is the last form, a last resort. Jihad is mental warfare that exists within yourself. Jihad is self-improvement. Jihad is not immediately a crusade, okay? People will 100% use what you just said to claim you're justifying Islamic fundamentalists. No, of course not. I am not even remotely justifying Islamic fundamentalism. I hate Islamist fundamentalists, dude. I'm a fucking progressive Muslim from Turkey. Obviously, I despise the dipshits that use religion to fucking harm others. What people forget, and this is something that they always fucking forget, is that I hate conservatism, dude. Why the fuck would I make an exception for Muslim conservatives? That's one. And two, what is deeply frustrating is, like, Islamic fundamentalism harms other Muslims significantly more than it harms fucking white Westerners in bumfuck Alabama, okay? It's so frustrating because, like, these dudes living in Afghanistan, these dudes living in fucking Iraq, these people living in any part of the world that has been touched and devastated by American interference and imperialism are fighting a fucking dual war. One, they're fighting for autonomy amongst their own, in their own citizenry, okay? They're fighting for recognition and fighting for control internally in these countries, okay? It's like how the left fights for a position of prominence in America against the psychopathic conservative fundamentalists here, right? So you have that exact same mentality there, but then also there's a secondary, much worse war to fight against American intervention that completely destroys any sort of struggle that you could have for autonomy within your own citizenry. Because when you have a much larger problem at hand in the form of American military imperialism, in the form of conquest, then you have to fucking push back against that. And that's how you see people literally partnering up with people that they normally would fucking despise and murder, okay, and push back against. That's the issue. Islamic fundamentalism equals conservatives here. You surely can't be serious. Why not? Because the only difference for you is unironically that like one is white and the other is not. That's it. It is absolutely the same. Are you kidding me? As a matter of fact, Christian fundamentalists have been more successful in causing devastation than Muslim fundamentalists have been, overseas at least. Yeah, fucking Osama bin Laden killed 3,000 Americans. The American military killed 10x that over the course of 20 fucking years, dude. Or not 10x that, fucking 100x that. What do you mean? George W. Bush said God told him to invade Iraq. This was a godly thing that he was doing. There were generals that were literally saying that, like, this was a holy crusade. That we should dip our fucking bullets in pig blood. But what's the difference? It's both bastardized interpretations of fucking Christianity and Islam. But of course, one is a state actor, and your state's actor. So you obviously think that that's, like, justifiable and good. The other is a fucking psychopathic Islamist fundamentalist that is a non-state actor, so they're fucking terrorists. That's the only difference. Ultimately, both are terror. Both are causes of fucking terror. And the American government, pound for pound, is significantly better at doing terror than any fucking terror cell. Half the time, it's our terror cells anyway. It's our people that we fucking funded and armed and trained, doing terror back to us. They were originally doing it to our enemies, so they were good and they were allies, and now they're doing it to us, so they're bad. And ultimately, the only difference between the Christian fundamentalist and Islamic fundamentalist is the material condition. Obviously, fucking Christians can't be like, yeah, I want to fucking make sure, I want to subjugate women to a, you know, religion-only education. Right now, they can't do that. But if they were in fucking Afghanistan, and Afghanistan was a Christian country, and it was fucking reduced to rubble in the same way, you think Christian fundamentalists wouldn't take advantage of that situation? Of course they would. Shut the fuck up, you dumb bitch. These motherfuckers are doing everything they can to, like, hurt women right now in the wealthiest nation on earth, where we have access to information, we have access to education. Quite successful at it too. Look at Texas. And you defend that too. Some of you literally defend that principle. Say, oh, nope, that's not. How can you compare the same? Yeah, it's different. It's adjusted to whatever the culture is. It's adjusted to what the material conditions are. The House Majority Leader was caught up in this scandal, and the Republican Party tried to tell everyone that this was just Democrats trying to weaken our country so the terrorists can win, and George W. Bush will then look bad. In the era of the Patriot Act being discussed, the Attorney General freaked out about a statue of just 7 tits and draped a bedsheet over her so no one can see them sweet marble breasts. They spent $8,000 on curtains to hide the titties. And then motherfuckers be like, Christian fundamentalists are so different. Like, this is some, like, this is straight up Taliban shit. You know what I mean? That's what the fuck the Taliban would do as well. We're coming up to one of my favorite events. 2007, Bush's aid czar, Randall Tobias, mandated that organizations oppose prostitution in order to receive American aid. It later emerged that Randy was a client of the DC Madam, though he claimed he only bought massages, presumably with a happy ending. Remember, every single motherfucker that has, like, written laws against abortion, written laws against prostitution, they're all fucking prostitutes. This was wonderful. A fake reporter named Jeff Gannon asked a softball question at the Bush press conference. He was later revealed to be a gay porn star working for a right-wing site owned by Texas-based Republican activists. So at the time, they would plant, like, insiders to ask, like, softball questions, which is wonderful. That one is funny. You should read it, because even though people were obsessed with the news at the time, forgot Bush was manufacturing his own reporting. Now, the hilarious part about this story is that they didn't even need to manufacture consent because the New York Times was doing it. The New York Times was already manufacturing consent, but that wasn't enough for the Bush administration. So they had to manufacture additional consent that they completely controlled. The guy put in charge of Iraq's economy thought the answer to dealing with widespread hunger and deprivation was the free market. Shocking. He created investment firms to try and get capital to factories in a literal war zone, and then got confused why no one was investing. Also shocking. He then gave some money to lots of Iraqis as a begrudging welfare program, but he did it through a single-use credit card. 90% of Iraq's phone lines were down, and accordingly, no one could process payments from the cards. Also shocking. The Bush administration was fucking wild and often just deleted, shredded, deleted and shredded lots of stuff the moment there was a FOIA request. They routinely framed journalists making FOIA requests as terrorist enablers. The vice president told the senator to go fuck yourself on the Florida Capitol after a senator apologized for having to investigate ties from the VP's office to the company he was the CEO of. He told Pat Lee to go fuck himself on the Senate floor because Pat Lee was like, dog, you were the fucking CEO of Halliburton. How are they getting all these contracts in Iraq? Vice is an incredible movie if you want to watch Dick Cheney and how much of a fucking monster he was, for the record. Dick Cheney was also famously known as Big Dick Cheney, and allegedly he has a fat hog, so I will give him that. Fat hog so fat that, like, he has a fake heart now, because every time he gets a fucking boner, the entirety of his fucking body pumps blood into his cock. Dick Cheney once famously fucking went on a pheasant hunting trip and shot a politician in the face, just sprayed him, just peppered him in the face with some fucking buckshot. And then the fucking person he fucking shot in the face apologized to Dick Cheney. That's also another thing. The President of the United States announced in a presidential speech that every nation is either with America or an enemy of America. The President didn't clear this with the State Department at all, and we lost tons of allies in ways that took a decade to recover from. The Axis of Evil speech that featured Iran alongside Al-Qaeda and Iraq and also Afghanistan was totally just randomly placed in there, for the record. The Axis of Evil, literally, in North Korea, was literally just made up by David Frum himself. David Frum, who, of course, is famously now a, anti-Trump libtard that fucking everybody loves and celebrates, even though he should be in jail. He added Iran into that conversation when Iran, historically, and still continued to until the death of Soleimani, the assassination of Soleimani by Donald Trump, was the #1 defenders against ISIS. They literally were the most successful force alongside the Kurds in purging ISIS from the region. Iran literally gave information to the American authorities to combat Islamist fundamentalism, even after being considered a part of the Axis of Evil. They were like, what the fuck? You're going to put us next to our enemies? Like, this is insane. We ran the most expensive military exercise ever to show the world that the U.S. could annihilate Iran. This is hilarious. The Millennium Challenge. I've talked about this before, too. In the exercise, the U.S. military leader who played Iran absolutely destroyed billions of dollars worth of military hardware and 20,000 troops. That's right. The famous Millennium Challenge showed that the American Navy would not be able to go against suicide attackers if they were to fight against Iran and the Iranian Navy and Iranian forces. But oh, no way, brother, get the fuck out of here. We fucking roll over. Yee, brother, fuck you. The game was then shut off, relaunched, but with new rules that rigged the game to show that we're #1. Also, a major goal with Iraq was to take it over as a staging ground for Iran. Iraq wasn't even the fucking entree. Turns out years later that the intelligence reports used by both the UK and US to invade Iraq were not only bogus, but many of them were sources literally just explaining a scene from the hit movie The Rock and pretending they were real. Remember, we lied to the rest of the world over and over again, routinely, to justify going into Iraq. The largest international protest ever at that point was the protest against invading Iraq. I was part of it. The news pretended it was much, much smaller than it was, and said there couldn't be that many unpatriotic Americans. Chelsea Clinton counter-protested that in England. After telling people that the U.S. could topple any government at the height of our fears and more fragile than ever, the president choked on a pretzel while eating alone and passed out. A pretzel almost took out George W. Bush. Many people forget this. A brave pretzel almost took him out, and not one of those big ones either, like a tiny one. He was so fucking stupid, dude. People often forget, like, I love George W. Bush era leftism and liberalism.
A pretzel, bro.
A brave Mujahideen pretzel almost took out the president at the time. Another thing that almost took out the president was a Segway. At the time, Segways were considered to be, like, impossible to fall off of, for the record. Literally, at the time, Segways were billed as, like, something that's impossible to fall off.
I remember it vaguely, but
many young people will forget Segways, because now we just, like, make fun of fucking people that are on Segways. But they thought this would revolutionize walking. I don't bring up the shoe because that actually makes him look good. He dodged the fuck out of that. But this is huge, by the way. A football star left his career and money on the table to serve his country. He immediately found out the war was total bullshit. Pat Tillman. And after he started making a ruckus about it, he had correspondences with none other than friend of the show, Noam Chomsky. And he started making a ruckus about it. A U.S. soldier shot him in the back of the head by mistake. Not only was Pat Tillman murdered in friendly fire, he literally fucking hid the truth from his family. Pat Tillman left his football career. He's still used to this day by reactionary fascist psychopaths to advocate what a true, Chad-jawed American hero looks like. The guy who left his fucking nice career in NFL to join the American military and go wage war. This dude literally got fucking murdered after speaking out against the war and corresponding with Noam Chomsky after joining the armed forces. And when his family wanted more details about his death, they fucking lied. The American government lied about his death. They hid it for the longest fucking time.
Big surprise.
Shot in the head
Big
fucking
surprise.
3 times. Shot in the back of the head in a mistake. Way too decent and smart to be a poster boy for the war. Tillman became an increasingly vocal critic of it and had arranged to meet with anti-war intellectual Noam Chomsky after his tour in Afghanistan in 2004. He never made that meeting. Recently, a book about Tillman, Boots on the Ground by Dusk, co-written by Pat's mother Mary, hit the shops in the U.S. In part a tribute. It's also about the Bush administration's horribly incompetent attempts to cover up the truth about Tillman's death. Pat's death is a microcosm of this administration in the last 8 years. The lie about Pat was not simply a lie to our family, it was definitely a lie to dupe the public, to deflect their attention away from the atrocities of Abu Ghraib, Fallujah, and of course they wanted people to disregard the president's sad approval ratings and the casualties. It's really important for people to understand this was done to deceive them. In Patrick Tillman and other athletes who've spoken against the war in Iraq, we've supported heroes to stand alongside Muhammad Ali, Tommy Smith, and John Carlos. They disrespect his memory to this day. They literally still use him as like a fucking pro-war propaganda. In response to a FOIA request filed by the Associated Press, the Defense Department released 2,300 pages of documents which were reported to indicate there has never been evidence of enemy fire found on the scene and no members of Tillman's group had been hit by enemy fire. The 3-star general who withheld details of Tillman's death from his parents for a number of months told investigators approximately 70 times that he had a bad memory and could not recall details of his actions. Army attorneys sent each other congratulatory emails for keeping criminal investigations at bay as the Army conducted an internal friendly fire investigation that resulted in administrative or non-criminal punishment. Army doctors told the investigators that Tillman's wounds suggested murder because the medical evidence did not match up with the scenarios described. He's still used as a military recruiting poster boy to this day, despite his anti-imperialist tendencies and outspoken stance against American military intervention after he, after he served or during the time of service. George W. Bush stole the election. You guys know this already. Florida was polling D+3 days before the election. Bush's brother purged black names from the polls as well as like-sounding names. Jeb Bush did that. And then once the recount began, dudes in nice suits literally walked up and just shut down the recount in what is known as the Brooks Brothers riot. A lot of the dudes that were in those Brooks Brothers outfits at the time were led by Roger Stone. Some of them became Supreme Court justices. It's kind of crazy to just think about all of that stuff, but it literally is that happened. That fucking happened. That's how Al Gore lost. Guys, who is that? In December 2000, Brett Kavanaugh, speaking to CNN's Wolf Blitzer, had a Supreme Court decision that settled the voting recount dispute in Florida's 2000 presidential election.
That's Brett Kavanaugh.
Wait. That's not just Kavanaugh, though. How Amy Coney Barrett, Amy COVID Barrett, played a role in the Bush v. Gore and helped the Republican Party defend mail ballots. What? Amy COVID Barrett was just 3 years out of law school, a 28-year-old associate at a boutique Washington law firm where she was dispatched to Florida to help George W. Bush's legal team rescue thousands of Republican absentee ballots. What? No way, dude.
That's crazy.
What? That's crazy.
That
what
is.
The
I didn't know that
Democrats
shit.
chose John Kerry to run in 2004 because he was a wildly decorated Vietnam War vet and legitimacy established in his patriotism, so Republicans just said he lied to get his medals and wore fake Purple Hearts. By the way, this was a profoundly successful strategy, which is part of the reason why I always say Democrats try to fucking run this idea of we are blue patriots, we're actually the real patriots, we went to war. It doesn't fucking work, dude. They will literally get up and say, nah, he's actually gay and also a fake veteran. And then everyone will be like, that's right! That's right! He is gay! He can't be president, he's gay, he was windsurfing! It literally worked. But that never stopped. Literally never stopped Democrats from still trying to roll out that exact same fucking strategy over and over.
It's over. Oh, we watched 2IT. No. Let's see here.